I met Ken a few years ago. I find Ken to be just one of these guys that are just I don't know, easygoing, fun loving, and one of these guys that is just um, in a very subtle way, just going about making the world better, changing things up. Tell you a little bit about Ken. Ken Hardison is the creator and founder and president of PILMA, which stands for the Personal Injury Lawyers Marketing and Management Association. He's an attorney who built not one, but two multi-million dollar law firms before selling them at the age of 52. Ken created Pilma to share his attorney trade secrets to build profitable and successful law firm practices, and it's become a global thing. I've attended his Pilma event, and it is spectacular. And we're talking people from not only US, not only Canada, but we're talking Europe, we're talking Australia, we're talking all over the world. Ken Hardison, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor.
Well, I'm excited to have you here, and I want to start off with talking a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit how, I don't know, maybe how your early childhood there in North Carolina that started shaping this drive for success and maybe got you into thinking about a career as a personal injury attorney.
Yeah. Well, I was raised my parents, my mother had an eighth grade education. My father had a fourth grade education. And so I was the first one to even go to college, much less law school in my family. They were good people. My mother worked in a factory. My daddy worked in a lumber yard. Good, honest, hardworking people. Um, I don't know. I started working when I was 10 in the back of fields. Then I started working at a grocery store. Then I started cutting meat. And so I worked my way. They couldn't afford to put me through college. So I worked my way through college, worked my way through law school. And, they did give me good work ethic. Um, my dad worked two jobs. He worked at a truck stop at night, part-time. So I got some pretty good training on work ethic and being honest, so yeah, it was, and I wanted to do, I saw what was happening around me with my schoolmates, and I say, they just feel like you kind of stuck. How can you get out of this? Because you kind of, how do you're going to school with kids whose fathers are lawyers and dentists and business owners or whatever, teachers, whatever, professors, and you're thinking they don't even realize how much they got it made. They really don't. But you can't. I wasn't jealous of them, but I just was thinking they didn't realize what they had, and I just wanted to pull myself out of it. And I figured real quickly that I had to do something that I own my own business. I actually thought about starting a grocery store. Didn't have the funds. Um, then I looked at law. I was dating this girl in high school, and she used to babysit this lawyer. And after I got off of work at 9 o'clock, I'd go over and sit with her on the weekends. And I really liked him, and I liked his lifestyle. He had a nice car, a nice family, a nice house, and he was a nice guy. And I would talk to him, and he'd come in, he'd be a little drinky, and he'd talk to me. Uh, and I said, I think I want to do this. And so I went to this small school that was just starting a law school. They hadn't even been accredited, but I went there, majored in pre-law. I got really, really good with my advisor, the head of the department, and got in law school and just worked. And then got married and had two kids during law school, believe it or not. And I was working. At one time, I was delivering papers 3 to 6 in the morning, going to school, then get off, go work, cut meat till about 8 or 9, then go into the law school and work at the library till midnight, close that up. So I was getting, about 3 or 4 hours sleep. That's why I got all these wrinkles in my. So I'm not saying it was easy, but the deal was, I think that's why I so worry about our democracy. In this country, anybody can do anything if you got the drive. I'm not saying I was the smartest guy. I didn't make law review, but I had to write on. I didn't get it just because of grades, but I just, I think the key to me was I just very focused, very
Driven.
driven. I don't like to take no for an answer, and I got this entrepreneur blood in me. I like building things, and I like thinking outside the box. So yeah, it was yeah, I mean, but it was a good life. I've had a good life. I've had a very blessed life. But somebody says, I tell people I'm lucky, but I think you get more luck. The luckier you get luckier, the more you work for it. But there is luck involved, and there's no doubt about it. You got to be at the right place at the right time sometimes.
I agree with that. And I think also there is part of that luck comes in when you're doing something.
Yeah,
What's the
yeah,
old saying that the harder I work, the luckier I get?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and I think that, there is some people call it the law of attraction, coincidence, fate. There is a a thing that happens when you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to become this, or I'm going to achieve that, or whatever. And the universe moves to help you make that a reality.
yeah. I think, yeah, it's got a lot to do with mindset, man. I mean,
It does.
I talk to a lot of lawyers. I do a lot of free 30-minute sessions with them, and I can tell within 10 minutes whether or not they got what it takes because it's all about your mindset. I was listening to something yesterday on Facebook or something, and this guy, it was Jim Rohn. He said, somebody's got the right mindset, like a salesman, and it's raining. He says, "Oh well, it's raining. Ain't nobody gonna buy nothing today." And then the other guy gets up and say, "Well, it's raining." So, but a lot of people will be at home today, especially my other salespeople that are competing with me. It's being the positive. In fact, I don't like. I've fired people in my businesses because they're negative. I don't like any negativity around me. Always part of our core values is what if. I mean, the deal is, uh, and I think lawyer, we go to law school, and it's sort of like going to basic camp. They break you down and then teach you how to think analytically, but they also teach you to think about what can go wrong because that's what you're supposed to do, help people prevent things from going wrong, right? I
Right.
think that I think that curbs the ability to have a mindset that looking on the good side, like if somebody says, "Well, this is in the way, I can't, I can't do it." No, if you can't go through it, go around it, go under it, go over it. That's the way I look at it. I don't take defeat easily, and I've always said second sucks. So 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 it's the mindset. I mean, and I don't know. It's not that I'm the sharpest pencil in the room, but as far as uh, perseverance and grit, and there's a book on it, Grit, and I read that book and I said, "That's me. That's Ken Hardison," because I was not the smartest guy in law school. I was not the smartest guy in high school. I was not the smartest guy, but I had grit and determination. I did not give up, and I set my sights on something, and I wouldn't let adversity, beat me down. And I've had some, believe me. I've been almost broke 2 or 3 times in my life, and entrepreneurs tend to do that because
Sure.
we take risks, where other people won't. But
I mean,
the only
you look
yeah
at some famous people like Walt Disney, who supposedly filed
yeah
bankruptcy like 7 times, and then
yeah
uh, was it Colonel Sanders, who, at the age of like 65, decides to start selling his chicken recipe and builds that
yeah
empire and stuff like that. So it is a mindset. In adversity, I think, is the launching pad. And I think whether or not you do something or don't do something, you pay a price, right? So if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to build a law firm, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to run a 4 minute mile, you're going to pay that price. And if you
yeah
decide, oh, it's too hard for me, then you pay that price. And you hear it all the time. People say, success is never earned, it's rented on a daily basis and stuff like that. I'm not sure about that, but certainly there's a mindset to it. There is, I think, you mentioned work ethic, and I think that is something that our society's lost that a lot.
yeah
We have it
yeah
so easy. And now with AI, there are people coming out of college who went to college specifically to learn how to code. And now AI has taken basically that first year of coding and made it, you know,
Yeah.
talk
So
or type to code.
yeah,
And
it's easy. It'll do it for you. I mean,
right.
yeah, it's affecting. They said AI was not going to replace jobs. It is going to replace jobs. It's going to be the entry level. It is. That's going to make people that you know very more productive, 10 times, 100 times more productive. But it's actually going to replace certain repetitive menial jobs. Yeah, it's come. I mean, it's already here, but it's coming to the law. It's already there in the law area, and I'm telling lawyers you've got to. I was actually speaking this morning at the North Carolina Advocates of Justice, and I was talking about. I remember when the internet came out, and a lot of my friends, lawyers, said, "Oh, it's just a fad. It's not going to last. No, I'm not going to worry about it." And I jumped in on it. I said, "Well, you might be right, but if it's not, I want to be one of the. I like to be one of the leaders. And if it's wrong, then that's just another. I don't call them failures. I call them learning experiences. Some of them are just more expensive than others. But it's like you know, yeah. I don't like to say failure. I like to say learn this. Now we learn what doesn't work.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we're actually and I'm telling lawyers now. I watched the younger lawyers. I was running. This has been 15, 20 years ago. And there were some younger lawyers that embraced it and were getting trucking cases in these cities, and these older lawyers couldn't figure out what the hell was going on, and they were getting rich. And of course, they caught up, but the deal was these guys banked it before they realized what the deal was. And the same thing's going to happen with AI. The ones that embrace it are going to bank it. And there's a lot of other stuff going on now, too, Bert, with this institutional money and these ABS, this alternative business structure, like in Puerto Rico and Arizona. And you've got these equity firms, and then you've got companies that now will go in and take over your law firm and run it for a percentage. And all you got to do is just have your lawyers over here, and they'll run everything, do your marketing, do all the processes, and you just manage the lawyers. Things are changing. I mean, and I'm seeing it. I mean,
Right. And I think that one of the things that I think a lot of professionals have in common, and you touched on this, is the marketing. You go to law school, and as you said, they give you that basic structure of the law and how to think like a lawyer, that analytical thinking that everybody should really go through. I had the pleasure of going to law school, and my first year of law school changed my life forever. That you start to realize, oh, this is what a contract is. And everything, just about everything we do is kind of a contract. I promise
yeah,
to, wash your car. That's a contract, It's
yeah,
simple things like that. And I think that just the average citizen should go and learn some of this basic stuff that you cover in year one of law school because
yeah,
it is so fundamental to everything we do.
yeah,
And I think back to what I was starting to say is these alternative business structures. One of the things that a lot of professionals suffer from is marketing.
yeah,
Uh, and I think that the law profession has kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit in the sense that when you see a lawyer commercial, they all kind of look the same and sound the same, and they basically have the same message. We're going to be the tough attorneys, and we're not, we don't win till you win, and blah blah blah. And it's like, come on, let's be a little bit creative in something that fascinated me about the profession of law when it comes to marketing, and is that for many years, lawyers were not allowed to market or advertise. It was
yeah.
like the
Not
craziest thing. This was a Supreme Court decision by Mr. Van
Bates.
Alstyne, I think, and
Yeah, but
that once he took that case to the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court says, "Yeah, you're a business. You have to be able to market. How is a consumer going to know this or that, and how are you going to build competitiveness?" And But it's crazy to me that at one point, lawyers and bar associations were so entrenched in their thinking into the tradition, the lawyerly way of doing business that they thought marketing was beneath them. It just blows me away.
I was one of those guys, Bert.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was one. No, no, really. I mean, this is a great story if you got time.
Yes.
So from 82 to like 94, I was with this firm in a small town, and I was growing the business 10, 20% a year. I had a yellow page ad, that was it, half a page. And my business grew each year. Then in 94, I noticed that it kind of leveled off. 95, it started going down. And I did criminal and I did PI, and I did some workers' comp and disability. And I had a partner that did estate planning and real estate, and I had another lawyer that did domestic. So I go to court to handle this DWI, and I walk in, and the guy walks in, and he's got crutches and got a cast on his leg. And I said, "What happened, Joe?" He said, "I got T-boned by this tractor trailer." I said, "Well, you know I do that." He said, "Yeah, but I saw this guy on TV, and I figured he must really be good." So I tried his DWI case. I won it. I went back to my office and I sat down with my partners. I said, "We've got to adapt. We've got to change with the times." And they wouldn't do it. They would not do it. I said, "Listen, I feel the same, but the deal is, look at our numbers." I said, we're going the wrong way." And I said, uh, I said, "We got to adapt and change with the times," and they wouldn't do it. So I left and took an associate and 3 staff members and went out and borrowed everything I could borrow on my real estate, whatever, about $500,000. And then I went and studied with Dan Kennedy, got him coaching me, Jay Abraham. Had nothing to do with law because there was nothing like Pilma. And there was no coaching, there was no fireproof, there was no crisp, there was no great legal marketing, there was none of this stuff out there. And I knew right away that my competitors were not going to tell me the secrets. So I also went around and went to about 3 or 4 lawyers. My first stop was John Morgan and spent 2 days with him and picked his brain back in 96. And back then he had 25 lawyers. He was just in Florida. Of course, you know where he's at now. But I learned a lot from these guys, and they were willing to tell me because I want their competitors. And lawyers have big egos, so they like to brag and tell you all their little deals. So I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from Dan Kennedy, and then I went back and took this money and I tried. I experimented, and like I said, half the stuff I did not work. Half of it did, and half did. I poured gasoline on it and got the fire bigger. And we went in 5 years from 2 lawyers, 3 staff, to 13 lawyers and 57 staff. And we went from like $500,000 to $8 million in like 5 years. And this is back in the 90s and early 2000s, from the 97 to 2002. So, and the deal was, this is what I tell people, and I still had, I would get no referrals from other lawyers. They would always report me to the bar saying everything I was doing was unethical. None of it never stuck. None of it ever stuck, but but we were signing up 200 cases a month, and we were doing good. And but like everything else entrepreneur, I woke up one morning and said, "I'm tired of this. I want to do something new. I don't look forward to getting up and going to work," even though I was making craps full of money. And I went and told my partner, I said, "I want out. I said, I want to sell out. I'll finance the whole deal. We'll agree on a price." I said, I said, "You'll be able to pay me with your profits." And he took, I laid out the deal. He took it. He didn't negotiate. So I gave him a hell of a deal. And then I was going to move down to Myrtle Beach and retire. 6 months of that, I got tired, and people were calling me, "How'd you do it? How'd you do it?" And my wife said, "You need to start charging for this, kid. There's people." I said, "Yeah, but I like helping people." So anyway, we started Pilma, and it's a hobby, and just have some kind of structure. And it just kind of took off, man. I mean, really, I did not start it to turn into something big. I never imagined this, unlike the law firm. I never had the vision of really, it just kind of happened. 2018, I knew something when we had something, and I did push it. Then I started running it like a real business. But before that, the first 5 or 6 years, it was a lifestyle business, and I was making decent money, okay, play money, but I mean, it's turned into a real. I mean, we have really big summits. We had this year we had 80 vendors, 40 speakers, 500 lawyers. You know, but you're right though. It's been doing it 15 years and it's turned into something bigger than I ever expected. Uh, and I'm proud of it because people ask me when you want to quit. I said when it's no fun anymore because it gives me self-worth, man. It gives me something to look forward to get out of bed. And I've got some friends that are retired. They're miserable, and they're lost. And if I get up like I did practicing law and I don't like it anymore, I dread getting in, doing something. And I just told my wife I'm doing this. She said, "Well, you love that, don't you?" I said, "I love talking about this stuff. I
Right.
love it. I mean, to me, it's not work; it's fun."
Absolutely. And I think especially when you can mentor somebody or when you see somebody's face light up, they finally get it. Oh, okay, it's this. Oh, okay. It's a lot of fun. It is very fulfilling and something that a lot of people don't understand until they get there. I don't care how much money you're making. Sooner or later, whether you're making few $100,000 a year or a few $100 million a year, it loses its luster and you got to find something else to do. That's why a lot of very, very successful people, what do? They get into charities and they start building hospitals and schools and stuff like that because they need something more. First, it's money. And I've had the pleasure of doing some work for Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he talks a lot about his first part of his career was all about me and my family. And now, the second half of my career is about we. How can we make the world better? And he's got his oh, what do you call it? He did whatever with the university, or he's and he has two or three different charities that he works with. One is for children, another one is for climate control and stuff like that. And he still loves politics. He's as you know he's been a governor and stuff like that. So I think that's just a normal development, right? This organic growth that you go, that things change, and some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's some people who love what they do and they'll do it till they die, and that's it. Again, nothing wrong with that because you hit the nail on the head. As long as it's fun, as long as you're still getting up, going, man, I can't wait to do more. You're in a great place.
Yeah,
And once you start hating, some people call it Sunday night anxiety because you got to get, what's waiting for you on Monday. Okay,
yeah,
now I think that's a good signal that it might be time for you to do something different.
yeah. I mean, I always really tried to mentor and teach my children that find something you got a passion for. And neither one of them, none of them wanted to be lawyers. They said I worked too hard. They watched me. But I said, find something you got a passion for, a real passion, and I'll teach you how to make money at it. That's one of my gifts God gave me is I know how to take something and leverage it to make it into something that earns you a living. But what's better, something to be able to earn a living and something you got a passion for? I got a passion for this. So, that's what I'm saying. I think so many kids now are just trying to make the money or trying to get, I don't know what they're trying to do, but I don't, now I know what my parents were thinking when I was young. I thought I knew everything. I didn't know shit. But
You know what though, again, that's part of growing up.
yeah,
When you're in your teens, your late teens, you're looking at your parents like they're so out of touch and they're so dumb and you know everything, right? And nothing humbles you and at the same time educates you better than when you go off on your own. And
yeah,
I one of the best things, so we have five kids and the last two kids were twin girls. And I always like to joke and say when the boys started coming to visit my twin girls, that's when my hair fell out. That was it. Couldn't take any more. But uh, I one of the best things that ever happened to them was they wanted an iPhone. Now we had bought them these cheap Walmart phones, which were, was good enough for texting and calling, which is all I needed them to do. Of course, they were like, Dad, we're the only people in our school that don't have iPhones. I said, great, you can be different. Of course, they didn't like that. And so they're like, we need to get iPhones. I said, well, you're going to have to go and work for it. And it just so happened that we had a friend who was opening up a pet grooming place, and she says, "Hey, the twins can come work here on the weekends." And it was perfect because it was nasty. It was hard work. They were sometimes they'd have to deal with urine and animal crap and all that other stuff, and interact with people who were over the top crazy about their animals and stuff like that. But it taught them work ethic. It taught them how to earn money, and so they saved enough
And the
money and they
value,
bought themselves an
and
iPhone.
that taught them the value of a dollar.
Yeah, yeah. And so like a year or two later, they're like, it might be time to upgrade my iPhone. They didn't want to do it because they didn't want to spend the money. They know how hard it is. They realize, like you said, the value of money. And it wasn't,
Yeah.
it's easy to spend it when mom and dad are paying for it, but when you got to
Oh
pay
yeah.
for it, man, that's a different thing. And so anyway, that was a great thing that happened to them. They got lucky. To this day, when they're saying, "Oh man, this is such a grind," or "This is tough," is it harder than working at the pet grooming place? No, no, it's not, and it just helps them
You
refocus.
know, I used to have a question when I was interviewing associates, and well, you believe it or not, one of my main things I want to know if they worked when they were in high school, college, either during the summer or while they were going to school, and that was a big deal to me. And what kind of job they had, that were they working with the public? Because I felt like it made them, number one, have a work ethic. Number two, be able to relate to the common man, which a lot of PI lawyers, that's what we're doing. We're dealing with the common man, the blue collar. Not all of them. I mean, everybody gets some wrecks, but what I'm saying is the ones that hire lawyers are usually, you know, under $100,000 a year employees. And I just felt like that was more important to me than whether or not they were on law review. But that's just me. I'm not saying the other's not important, but I'm saying, I wanted somebody that could relate and give good client service and really care and understand what it means to work.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. There is so much uh, concern in the medical field as well as in the legal profession about prestige. Lawyers are, and you correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of lawyers, a lot of big law firms are impressed that you went to Harvard, or that you came whatever elite school you came from, Princeton, whatever. I don't care. I mean, if you're representing me, I just have to feel as though A, you care about my situation, and B, you got the skills and the experience to win my case. And I don't
Yeah,
know about you, but I've never had a client say, "Hey, Bert, what was your grade point average? Where'd you graduate from?" We don't care.
I
Consumers don't care.
yeah, I never had them ask. I was ready to say I never had anybody ask me where I went to law school or whether I was on law review or where I finished in the class. You know what they asked me? Can you help me?
Do you
Can you
think
help
that
me?
you can win this case, Ken? That's what I need to know. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So you're right. You're right. It don't really matter.
All right. So I love that background. Uh, I want to talk about Pilma. You've already kind of alluded to it. It started as a hobby and it started to grow organically from there. And I want to back up just a little bit because you mentioned Dan Kennedy. And for those who do not know Dan Kennedy, Dan Kennedy is probably best known as a real marketing guru. Um,
Yeah.
if you Google Dan Kennedy or go to Amazon and hit Dan Kennedy, he's got tons of books and
Yeah.
everything from not just marketing, but niche marketing, like how to sell to the rich or the ultra rich, how to write a sales letter that actually works, and I got a bunch of his books. So how
Oh,
did you get
oh,
involved with Dan Kennedy? And was that part of the reason also that you started Pilma?
uh, it was. I actually modeled it after his program. To be honest with you, yeah, I've spent over I've spent six figures, not seven, but I spent probably two or 300,000 with him over the last 30 years. Um, and it was worth every cent of it.
And I want to stop right there and ask you this. What did that investment do for you? Because people are going to say, wow, this guy spent two or $300,000 on a coach or a mentor. Why?
Yeah, because I don't know what I don't know. Yeah, and I'm not. I wasn't even smart enough to know the right question to ask. Okay, so that
Exactly.
uh, so yeah, I just found him online, man. Believe it or not, and I started going to his events, and then I joined his mastermind, and then I got individual one-on-one coaching. I won Market of the Year one year. Uh, the thing about it, Dan hates lawyers. He says they screw up everything for business people. But I got along good with him. But I think he respected that. I didn't. I never talked to him about politics or anything like that. I never got into that. I wanted to know about the marketing, and I used a lot of his stuff. Uh, and I ain't gonna say every bit of it worked, but probably 90% of it worked. And that's a good batting average. So yeah, I mean, I've read about every book he's ever done. I can't tell you how much money I've spent, but it was, and this is where I think lawyers screw up. They think about it as an expense. I think about it was an investment in my future because it made me millions. I'm talking about millions, and I'm not bragging because I'm not rich. I've gone through a divorce, so that you lose half of that right to start with. I had to start over 10 years ago, and that's okay. I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy. I'm glad to pay. I'm glad I paid her. I'm glad I'm still paying her. I got no problem with it. I have no. We had three wonderful children, and everything's good.
Yeah,
But
yeah. No, and
but the
I'm
deal
glad to
is,
hear you say
yeah,
that because a lot of guys get so bitter about it and whatever, and you guys
no
build a
man,
life together and stuff like that. So that's great.
we
So,
just grew apart. We just grew apart. I mean,
all right,
it happens. It happens.
absolutely. Um,
Uh,
so yeah, Dan Kennedy, and one of the things I like about Dan Kennedy, uh, and he's got a fairly dry personality. He's
oh yeah,
not your typical marketing guy. When you look at somebody, let's say like a Tony Robbins, who's like very high energy and come on and blah, 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 still good stuff. But
yeah,
Dan Kennedy is, I would say, he's a very, and he does have a humor. It's a dry sense of humor. He kind of
yeah,
slides it in there if you're not paying attention. But it's like going to any other college course and he pulls out his high-tech device, which at this point was a overhead projector,
yeah. That's what he.
just
Yeah,
like you would
that's
find at a college course, and goes to
yeah,
town and uh,
yeah,
anyway, so that's one of his personalities. One of the things I liked about him, it was no nonsense. Here's what you do. Shut up and get to work.
yeah. That's right. He didn't mince words. But I got along with him fine, and he helped me a lot. There's no doubt about it. And Jay Abraham's got a different personality. I think he thinks more outside of the box than anybody I ever met. Uh, uh, they're different, but they're both good in their own way. You know what I'm saying? But the
Yeah, I would
foundational
say
stuff,
that Jay Abraham has a little bit more of a personality,
he
but as
does.
you said, the information is good.
Yeah, the foundational stuff from Dan, like you got to differentiate yourself. You gotta have a good hook. You gotta do this. You gotta follow up. The whole big deal. There's a journey. Da da da. And he's they call him the millionaire maker. I mean, he's helped a lot of people become multimillionaires. There's no doubt about it. You know,
No,
but yeah. I mean, and like I said, I owe him a lot.
Absolutely. No, I do too. I love Dan Kennedy. Any any anything that I've learned from Dan that I've experimented with has always been a positive experience.
Yeah.
Not that it's always worked the way I wanted it to work, but before Dan Kennedy, I never even thought about compiling, uh, what do you call it, samples of different types of marketing or media, right? It just never dawned on me. And again, this is like what you said before, the stuff that you don't know, it makes a big difference. And so now I have a library of different marketing things that I can look at and say, oh, I like that, and I like the way this is worded, and it's little things like that that I don't care. I would say it doesn't matter what your passion is, it doesn't matter what your degree is in, it doesn't matter what your certification's in. Chances are very, very high you know nothing about marketing, and marketing makes or breaks your business. At least one of the elements that makes or breaks your business. Obviously, you have to have good trained people, because if you got leads coming in the door and you don't know what to do with them, that's not good either. But man, just I would say the average startup, even a well-funded startup, they don't know anything about marketing. And you can get lucky, but lucky is not necessarily duplicatable. But if you want to grow a business, you got to get leads in, you got to nurture those leads, and you got to eventually close those leads. All right, so let's talk about this. Real quick, I wanted to ask you specifically, what do you see that a lot of personal injury attorneys, what mistakes do you see that's pretty common to most personal injury attorneys? Let's talk about this.
Okay. Number one is they don't differentiate themselves. They all sound alike. Uh, we're tough, we're strong, we care, we got this many years experience. Uh, call us free. The call is free. I mean, they all say the same thing. You've got to have. I say it. I learned this from Dan. You got to answer two questions when somebody's calling you as a lawyer. Do I need a lawyer? And if I do, why should I choose you over all these people I see on billboards, or TV, and social media, and newspaper, wherever? Why you? Why should I choose you? I used to have a thing on my website that says how we're different. I had a subtopic. That's how it stuck in my brain. Um, and then the biggest one where I used to do a lot of consulting. I don't now. I'm kind of slowing down a little bit, but intake, signing up new cases, dealing with leads, converting leads. And here's the myth. All lawyers, when I talk to them, they say, "Oh, well, I sign up every case I want," and they might, but they're not answering the phone every time somebody calls. They're in the courtroom, they're doing depositions, they're talking to other clients. And I've proven it. I had a lawyer up in Virginia, I ain't gonna say where, was spending $2 million a year on TV, and he wanted me to do a consult. So the first thing I did, I went out and hired this company that does mystery calls and acts like somebody that's been hurt, and did 5 of them, and 3 of them were failures. I mean, and then 2 of them they did okay. I sat down with the partners and played this, because they said, "Oh no, we got this covered." I said, "Do you really?" Played it, and the head partner got up and turned red and went to the bathroom and threw up, because he knew what he was wasting. And so, but so having dedicated intake, I was talking this morning at this event, and I said, even solos, I said, think about it this way. You need it worse because you got to do so many things. But if you got somebody that's dedicated and they get you 1 extra case a month, and your average fee is 10,000, you paid him 40, you made 80,000 profit. If you get 2 extra cases, you made a cool 200,000. Okay. And what we found is, so now, like at Pillman, we do intake training every month for the people's intake people. And we got a great person that does that. And we really tell them you got to know what percentage are you converting that you want, not how many you convert that just raises their hand because they might not qualify. So we try to shoot to get them to 92 to 95%. And what they find when we go in and do audit is they're doing about 65 to 75%. And they thought,
Wow.
start up every case I want. And they don't. I've had some at 80, but the deal is what you think and what's real is two different. And that's where I see the most money wasted. That's probably the number one. But those two things, and then not knowing your numbers. When I talked to a lawyer in this, I said, how many active cases you got? Oh, I don't know, probably around 300. I'm not sure. I mean, you're in litigation. I don't know. Probably it is. When they say probably or guesstimate, I say you don't know. You just don't know because you're not keeping up with it. Do you know how many cases you're adding? Like how many are you signing up versus how many you're closing? Do you know how long it takes you to close a case from the time you sell it to the time that the person gets their money? Are you trying to compress that? I mean, they don't know their numbers. And so you got to know your numbers. Knowing your numbers is probably number three. And there's a lot of other ones, but I'd say those are the top three. Not differentiating, not having the intake, lead conversion down, and then not knowing your numbers because you can't manage what you can't measure, right?
Right. Absolutely. And people, depending on their personality type, some people hate numbers. They weren't good at it back in school, and it frightens them or bores them, whatever word you want to use. It pains them. And I always say, you know, you could nowadays, you might not have been able to do this 30 years ago, but today you can go and get a CFO on a part-time basis,
Yeah,
and they can
fractional.
help
Yeah.
you understand those numbers. You got to understand those basic reports.
And I'll tell you
And
something else you can do, Bert. We ain't talked a lot about AI, but I use it as a thought partner. I load it into my I do a close. You can close up ChatGPT, and I close it up, add it, put in my P&L. I said, where are the gaps? Where can I save money? Where can I make money? Ask me any questions, one time at a time. And it went in there and it gave me 2 or 3 recommendations. So what I'm saying is, if you feed it in the numbers, it can tell you what you need to know. I mean, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. That's why I said you got to embrace this stuff. It's not just. It's actually a good thought partner. I mean, I
yeah,
use it
yeah,
to solve a lot. I use it to solve a lot of problems. Is it 100% no? But it gets you thinking.
it
You know,
does. It does. I had a client who grew his business to I think a little bit over $10 million a year, and he was a pretty nice guy, uh, and he would manage. He was the first guy that I ever saw truly managed by the numbers. And the reason I say I saw is because I was there when he at one of my visits. He invited me to be in the weekly meeting with the leadership that he had, and they went right through the numbers. And he's a numbers guy, so he can make it a little bit more interesting. But he had a goal to keep his company at 20, I think it was like 25% profit. And so if it dipped below 25% profit, he would let people go. Now he might hire them back, but he would let people go like immediately. He wanted to keep it 25% because he knew at 25%, here's all the things I can do. But the number one thing is I have a buffer. I have a buffer in case things slow down, which he was in the newspaper industry at that time. And things always slowed down at certain parts of the year during the
yeah,
summer and things like that. And so he was brutal about managing by the numbers. And not that you have to be like that, but to me, that really opened my eyes in a way that I had not seen numbers management like that before. It's not fun to let people go. It's not fun necessarily to manage by the numbers in that sense, but it's also not fun closing your business. It's also not fun, having a business that's doing, millions of dollars a year, but yet you can't pay yourself because you don't know what the numbers are.
yep,
All right. So you mentioned AI, and I think this is going to be so important. AI in the law, one of the things that's been happening quite a bit, there's been several attorneys, unfortunately, that have gotten in trouble because they didn't check the AI homework, right?
Right,
But
that's right.
but AI is here. And so how is PILMA teaching its members how to use AI?
Yeah. Well, you can't let it. What I'm saying is, you've got to use it as a guide, but not as a replacement. I guess is what I'm saying. That's the general overall deal. But like, I like to use it as a thought partner to help me, but it does hallucinate, and it's getting better. But what I'm trying to teach my lawyers is to take one process each quarter and figure out how to automate it, something with AI or what any other kind of automation. So that, because here's the deal, you want to get, as more and more it's getting more and more saturated with the marketing from national firms and institutional money. You have to spend more on marketing. What Dan teaches, he who spends the most wins the game. You know, but so using it to, and some of it's going to be replacing. Like we're playing with. There's a company now that's got a good AI platform that'll actually do intakes or do callers, and I tested it. It's unbelievable. I tried to screw it up. It's unbelievable. And when it got to a place, I said, I'm just not going to make a decision unless I talk to a lawyer. It says, absolutely, Mr. Hart's going to transfer you right now.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And it had empathy, it had everything, and it knows 30 languages, and it can handle up to 20 calls at one time. It never sleeps, it never eats, it never goes on vacations, it never gets sick. So there's going to be another place. What if you could set up your whole file with an AI agent, calling the insurance company, getting the file set up, going after medical records. Now they've got it where it does demands, It's just, I was talking to this equity guy, and he says that what they're looking at is when a lot of boomers my age are selling their law firms, and they're looking at how much time they touch the file, and how are they using AI, how are they using automation. And of course, they're also looking at their return on marketing, which they said they won't touch nobody unless it's at least 4.5, 6. And I've been preaching 6+ for 20 years, which made me feel good. Because of that. But because some people say 5, but I've always just really preached 6. If you spend $1 on marketing, I want $6 back.
Right.
I know I'm gonna make great money. I can live with 5, but it gets below 5, I gotta either tweak it or get rid of it. But so I see that, and we're actually doing the AI for PI lawyers in January 15th through 17th in Orlando, and I've got a bunch of good speakers. I'm not one of them, but it's got lawyers that are using it. I'll show you how to use it. I've got a bunch of big thought leaders on it, and I've got some vendors that are going to talk about what their stuff does. And then we've got we're going to break it off the last day, and owners and managers, marketers, and then intake people, and we're going to sit there and do workshops and give them a plan on what they need to do, because most lawyers, even the ones that want to, don't know where to start. And so I got some really good people. I've had to pay for some speakers this time because their knowledge base is very important. And so I'm looking forward to it. We're getting good response. I think we'll
And
sell
this is
out.
taking place when?
January 15th through 17th in Orlando at the JW Marriott. You can go to pilma.org and look at our website under events, and it's it's a good time to go do that, and shoot over to Epcot or Universal or whatever.
We just hit the beach.
Yeah. So it's but no, I think it's I think it's important. I always like to be the leader. We did an AI conference. This past August was 2 years ago, right when it was real new, and we had over 120 lawyers there at that time in Charlotte, and it's gone so far since then. And I told them, I said, this is just the beginning. I said, this stuff is like wildfire. But yeah, so it's yeah, I think you got to adapt, just like you did with the internet.
Yep.
He who
Yep.
he who adapts wins the game, my friend. It's
That's right. That's
Darwinism.
right.
It's Darwinism.
Yeah.
If you survive, you got to adapt.
Absolutely. And I think, speaking of adapting, I mean, AI, not only is AI going to be just a wonderful tool, but it's also going to create a new field of law.
Yeah, it is. It
Uh,
is.
just like every innovation tends to do that. And to your point,
Yeah.
I want to talk about this a little bit, that if you're a little concerned about how to use AI, definitely I'm going to urge you to check out the PILMA. You can go to pilma.org, and I'm going to put links here in the show notes, but January 15th through the 17th. But start off something easy. The I don't know if this is still true, but back in the day, the number one bar complaint was, my lawyer never calls me back. I never hear
Yeah.
from my lawyer. That could be
Yeah.
automated. You,
Yep, it is. It is. There is. There's two. You can do it yourself, or there's two companies out there right now, Hona and Case Status, and it's not that expensive. And I've got members at Pillman that are using both of them, and they love it. It cuts down on the calls and complaints, and gives them an idea if a client's not happy, so they can hit it off at the pass before it gets too
right.
bad. So yeah, yeah, I mean, it's there, and they're using AI to some extent, but the big deal, they've got a whole platform that does this and keeps the client happy, and the client have access and communicates, and still doesn't take away the human touch, but it just really helps. So it's
Well,
already out
all right. And the way I explain it to my clients is, because a lot of people are confused on uh, how to tell their consumers that they use AI or voice AI, or a AI agent, is you don't hide it.
there. Yeah,
Hey, this is, if somebody's trying to get a hold of me, and the AI tells them, hey, I am Bert's AI assistant, is there, anything I can help you with? And if they say, no, I really need to talk to Bert, no problem. Let me transfer you right now. It's that simple. But I want to say 50% of the cases, when people call me, they want a real simple update, or they need something emailed to them, and that can be taken care of without me ever picking up that call. Not that I mind talking to my clients at all, but we're
I know.
all trying to get less busier, I think, especially the older we get, the more our time matters. And so I think now more than ever, using AI to me is an absolute requirement. And I tell people, look at the evolution, because back in the day, um, when I say back in the day, I want to say maybe 15, 20 years ago, you would have these simple, um, what do you call it? They call them robocalls, right? Where it's a pre-recorded
Yeah,
message. And, hi,
yeah,
if you want to go to Mexico for $199, whatever, go to this website or press one. And then it
yeah,
evolved uh, even more. And so to me, this is the same thing. When you used to get these robocalls, you're not going, wow, this is a human. No, it's not. You knew immediately it wasn't a human. It still worked. It still delivered results. AI is
yeah,
the same thing. The difference is, as you mentioned, AI has gotten so good that if you're not savvy, you might think this is a real person, because they've gotten so friggin' good. And
yeah,
I've talked to a couple of guys from Google, and they're like, this isn't even real AI. This is like the baby steps of AI, because it's still learning, and you still gotta, because like as you mentioned earlier, it hallucinates, and you still sometimes have to repeatedly tell it, don't do this, and don't do, and do this instead, or whatever. Uh, there's there's just so many ways of using AI. I know that, for instance, Facebook, who owns, or Meta, who owns Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, as well as WhatsApp. they're putting on webinars on how they're using AI to optimize your marketing, right? And there's some AI features out there that will let you interact with social media, including WhatsApp. So if that's a channel that you're using, AI can step in and really
Yeah,
facilitate a conversation. So you can filter out the looky-loos from people who are really interested. So there's
yeah.
just
I
so
mean,
many ways. Um,
yeah,
all right. So
we use those clips, and we do like what we're doing here, and we'll cut 10. You feed it in, and it'll clip it out for you and give you which one's going to do the best, and push it out on social media for you.
absolutely, absolutely. And we do the same thing. I mean, there is not only will it clip it down for you, but you can program when it should go out on social media and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's an amazing thing. All right, so let me ask you this about Pilma. So back here in again in January 15th through the 17th, is this specifically for just AI, or are you going to be covering other topics as well?
Probably 80% will be AI.
Okay.
You know, how to use it. We got a few other things in there. We're going to be talking a little bit about offshore, how to use offshore with AI, because that's the two ways you can cut your overhead to get to where you can spend more on marketing and compete with the big gorillas.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And I love the fact that you're focusing 80% on AI because again, for a lot of people, this is going to be new to them and you literally have to hold their hand as they're walking through this stuff. Um, all right, I want to talk about this if you don't mind. And beginning of this year, maybe first, I don't know, 3 or 4 months of this year, we had our current administration go after law firms. Did this
Yeah,
shock you?
yeah, it did. It did. It did surprise me with Trump, but it shocked me. It shocked me that they folded. Uh,
So quickly. They
uh,
folded like
yeah,
immediately, some of them.
yeah, like that's not a law firm I want to hire. If they fold that quick, but it's some of them didn't, but most of them did, and I was really and the universities too. You just should not let government. I would, but these are different times. But I was very shocked, uh, but not really surprised.
Well, I think
I think it's changing. I don't think as many will agree. I think it just the first ones got caught off guard,
yeah.
and they were thinking about the money, uh, and
Well, and I think
you
you're right. There was like, okay, it's only 20 million bucks. Let's just get it done, right?
yeah,
Because you don't know how the administration is going to behave. They're weaponizing
yep,
everything.
yeah.
Uh,
It's sad times at Ridgemont High.
it is. But what shocked me the most when I first heard that he was going after law firms, I was like, oh man, this is going to be a knockout, drag out fight because one of the things
Yeah,
that I love about lawyers is, and people don't understand this, is lawyers have changed the world. Let me
yeah,
rephrase it. At least have changed America. The reason we have segregated schools is because lawyers. The reason we have so many product unsegregated, the reason that we have so many safety features in our vehicles, lawyers. The reason that our water is cleaner, lawyers. The reason we have so many rights and privileges, lawyers who have held the Constitution, who have fought who against the government. I mean, to me,
yeah,
that's one of the things that lawyers that I have always idolized about lawyers. Because and it's
yeah,
not always some like huge law firm that goes out that fights the government. A lot of times it's these little tiny 1 or 2 man shops that fight for 3, 4, 10 years before they win. And I
yeah,
thought, man, he's going after the big dogs. They're gonna chew them up and spit them out. And I was so wrong.
yeah. That was like I said, it was shocking.
I,
Yeah,
I just, yeah, it was incredible. All right, so real quick, back to Pilma. I apologize for switching back and forth, but I wanted to ask you this: if is there a cut off for Pilma? In other words, if I'm a 1 year, if I've only been in business for a year, should I be attending Pilma,
Yeah,
or what's your thought?
yeah. We got solos. We got different programs. We got stuff that's not that expensive, and we got masterminds, which are more expensive. And I talk to people and I can pretty much tell them where they ought to be. Like yesterday, I told a guy, I said, you really need to just do our gold program for a year and use the, and get things, get your foundation built and then come over to the mastermind. Um, but yeah, we've got solos, we've got 50-man law firms. We got the gamut. It goes, you know, but yeah, it's and we're me, I like to differentiate. We're the only one out there that gives a 90-day money back guarantee, no questions asked.
Yeah,
So
I love that. I love that, and that again is one of those great things that I'm assuming you learned from Dan Kennedy because Dan Kennedy
yep,
loves a big old fat
yep,
guarantee. Remove
yep,
the risk.
risk, yep, ironclad guarantee, risk reversal. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
And I want to say this: one of the great things that I enjoyed about Pilma when I attended was there was no ego, at least with the individuals that I met. And as you mentioned earlier, lawyers have a big ego. It's a very competitive field,
Yeah,
and but at Pilma, it's like everybody's very relaxed. They're there to learn and have fun. And I saw lawyers from Texas, from Houston, from where I'm from, talking to lawyers from Los Angeles, and they were sharing notes and they were helping each other, and it was cool because
yeah,
it is such a business in general is such a competitive environment, and when you can sit alongside somebody who's doing millions of dollars a year and you're just getting started, that in itself is worth the time and,
yeah,
and money.
yeah. It's like me going down and visiting John Morgan, except you got 500 lawyers there you can visit with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Same deal.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Ken, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I'm excited about Pilma. Again, guys, it's going to be January 15th through the 17th in sunny Orlando, Florida. And Ken, I'm looking forward to speaking with you again soon, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much.